back in studio. I'm glad to be back. Glad to be doing stuff. I'm glad that you were here in the room with me. I'm super, super stoked about it. Anyway, we're almost in agreement. Almostinagreement@gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com. While you're there, check out our cool stuff that we got going on. Early voting, I guess, starts next week for these city races, all 5 of them that nobody cares about. But we'll talk about that and some other stuff coming up. Go to your favorite podcast provider, follow us there, tell your friends about us, help us get the word out. We're going to keep doing what we're doing and trying to figure out what's going on. Oh, and yeah, that's an exciting one. We'll talk about that in a minute. So anyway, intro and then show starts. Here we go. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
What's new and exciting?
Nothing new.
You had a fun trip with my truck full of cat litter. I apologize. I forgot.
That's all right.
I don't pay attention to that truck anymore. It is literally a garbage truck.
Yeah. Thankfully, where I was going was right next to a cheap store. So, got like a $10
Tarp?
tarp. Yeah. Just threw it down in the back and threw it away promptly. I was like, I'm not going to rinse this thing off.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. That litter's been in there for a while. It's been rained on a couple times, so it's probably not gross in so much as it's like actual cat piss and shit. It's just all clumpy because it's been rained on and stuck together. And it's just a giant clump.
There was definitely some shit in there.
Was there?
I don't know. Maybe it was just clumped up, but it looked like shit.
It's possible. I don't know. I had a bag.
So I was wondering, like, how the hell that happened. It was a good bit of litter.
It was a bag that had got a cut in or whatever, and when I picked it up,
Ah.
a bunch came out the bottom. And again, I don't give a shit about that truck. Pun not intended, but I'll take it.
Ha ha.
Ha 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 ha. So, Israel's at war. The speakership shit hasn't settled out yet. At least as I don't know. I didn't check today.
Like the latest I heard was, I guess Jim Jordan's now throwing his
Scalise
hat into the ring.
I guess Scalise is that name? Steve Scalise.
Yeah, he backed her.
He backed out.
Rescinded his.
He won the first caucus only private election. I thought it was like a 112 to 99 or something like that.
Yeah, he beat out somebody else.
I thought it was Jim Jordan. I thought it was him and Jim Jordan. They were the only like official. I don't know. I don't know. It's a shit show, and a part of me is starting to feel like it might be on purpose. It's like this is a GOP plan. This way you don't do anything.
I did see. I don't know if it was a certain like group of Democrats, but apparently like the Democrats had put out some kind of offer to whoever the acting speaker is at the moment to give him some more powers,
so they could actually do some shit.
Yeah, it's where they can actually pass some funding bills and whatnot.
Right, I'd read something that they were like exploring the options on how much they can do without an actual speaker in place.
Right,
like they're trying to figure out if there's anything they can do or if they literally have to go through this.
Yeah, there was some talk about, I guess, giving him like temporary powers. So it's weird when you kind of start like writing in some of these things, because that's kind of what they did. Like when McCarthy became speaker, so they kind of like amended a few little rules.
Right, but I said I don't quite understand the premise. Like I understand like a leadership thing, and it's somebody to vote to preside over to help do whatever. But it's like the more I'm learning about it because of what's going on, because of the crazy race that was, and now this kick out and all that kind of thing, is that it's like we were talking last week. Like I was joking like top 5 powerful people in the world. It's like no, I think that's I'm going to reiterate that I think that might be even higher than that. It might be 1 or 2
in the world,
in the U.S. Sorry, we are the world. Whatever.
Yeah, sure we are.
Because
we're number 1 and what?
Literally nothing happens. Like nothing happens without the speaker's okay on it. And when you get into this whole partisan bullshit that is the House nowadays, it's like, well, the speaker gets to assign subcommittees. He gets put the people he wants in the subcommittees. So if
I don't see why they can't still vote on stuff. You essentially have the full House there, but
right, but he doesn't have nobody can put he has control, he or she, excuse me, they would have control over what gets they control the agenda of the day. If the speaker doesn't want to put it on the floor, it doesn't matter if what is it, 437 members. It doesn't matter if 436 of the members say they want to vote for this thing right now. I'm sure there is some weird popular thing where they can force stuff on the floor, but it's got to be really like 300 plus people are like, we're going to vote on this now. Yeah. But it's got to be,
ain't gonna happen.
It's got to be a huge majority, not just a simple like 210 or 212 or whatever it is. But outside of that, it's if the speaker doesn't want to deal with it, we're not going to vote on this thing. I mean, that's kind of what the Medicare for All thing that Bernie introduced a couple years ago when Pelosi was speaker.
No.
After that round of midterms during Trump's era, after that round of midterms when they were redoing the process of re-putting her as Speaker of the House, Jimmy Dore is my reference for this. If you follow Jimmy Dore at all in his thing, he's a super progressive kind of guy. And so his whole thing was like, because at the time the Progressive Caucus inside the Democratic Party is about 8-10 strong, but the whole body was close enough. It was like the inverse of what we're seeing right now.
Right.
We have 8 or 10 of these crazy ass Republicans that have the power to shut shit down because of the way the system works or whatever. Well, at the time you had 8 or 10 Progressive Caucus members that had the power to, and so a lot of the progressive movement was it was the force to vote movement, and it was, we'll vote for you, Pelosi, to keep your speakership, but only if you give us a floor vote on a Medicare for All bill.
Yeah.
And Pelosi said no twice. She said no to she got her speakership anyway, but then she said no and didn't put it on the floor.
Yeah.
And so the bill existed. It's just the bill was never going to see the light of day if Pelosi didn't want it to. And so it's like that's how much power and control the speaker has.
Yeah.
Which I think is a weird in and of itself. I guess that's kind of where I was starting in this. Like the idea that, like, I understand that like somebody needs to run the show. You can't just have a 400-something person free-for-all and everybody just keeps like, hey, let's vote on this thing. And whenever somebody calls for a vote, you have to vote because then nothing would happen. But at the same time, that one person has essentially the authority to make anything or nothing happen because they feel like it seems kind of ridiculous to me too. I guess that's the point of that whole spiel. This Israeli thing's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
A little scary. Not my favorite. Don't like this whole killing people thing going on. It's not my favorite. Anyway, so early voting starts next week for the city general. If you want to vote for the 5 people the 5 seats that are left, I guess, you can start doing that this coming week. So
yeah, so the last day to register was like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, and so it's like, you got the Hill Parker race. And then the Helsley and I just blanked out on his name. Marlowe, R. Bentley Marlowe. And then the judge races are the contested races. And then Charles Davis or Charles Thomas, District 5 had never had opponent in any of the process, and then Testerman had Cam Brooks and Cam passed. So that one's there's 2 unopposed races. And for city council, 2 actual races for city council, and then the judge race. Have you heard any of the drama in the judge race this last week?
No, I don't think so.
It's pretty crazy. So they had a forum, where they kind of went back and forth, and so Cavanis and Rawson are the 2 candidates. Rawson's the guy that's been there for 30-something years. Cavanis is 30 years old.
I thought I saw Ward for not Ward.
There's Mary Ward that was running for judge.
I think I've still seen her signs up.
Right,
maybe.
she lost in the primary, and this is part of the story. Part of one of the stories. We'll start with the first one that happened first at the
forum.
At the forum or whatever. Is Cavanis is making it a big deal about Rawson introduced the person whom gave the prayer before, as well as the person who sang the national anthem at some Trump rally. And so he was like one of a handful of people from like the local delegation of elected officials or whatever that was part of this Trump rally. And so Cavanis is making a big deal of it. And like Rawson has a picture of him and Trump. And Cavanis is making a big deal of it. He's like, I have a picture of me and a lot of people. That's like one of my things. I like to get pictures with famous persons. He's like, I got a picture with Bush. I got a picture with Clinton. I got a picture with Obama. I got a picture with like some baseball player. It's like and he brought him with him to his thing because he was aware that this was going to be an attack line. So he brought a bunch of pictures of himself with other elected officials from both parties.
I think I heard a similar story, but on like the national level. It was like Schumer had a picture with somebody, and they were giving him shit for it. He was like, I'm a senator from a major state. Like I take photo ops with a lot of fucking people.
Right. It's like Chris Christie. Like they say, Christie lost his presidential run, not this time around because he's still currently running, but against Obama or against. I guess it was during the 2016 run with the Trump primary and all that kind of shit. But he lost it when he gave Obama a hug and I took a picture with Obama when he was still governor of New Jersey, and Obama had come to New Jersey because some disaster was happening. Yeah. And so there was a picture of Christie and Obama in a hug, and that was just, nope, you can't be a Republican president if you've been friendly and been photographed with the
Hurricane Sandy, maybe.
Maybe. I don't remember what the surrounding of it was, but the idea, oh my God.
Right.
You had a picture with the current president of the United States during an emergency.
You're supposed to politely decline.
Right. You should have slapped him.
Right. Turned your back to him. Picked up a shovel and pretended like you were working.
Yeah. It's dumb. Because, it's like, I wouldn't shy the opportunity to take a picture with Trump. I'd take a picture with him.
Would you?
Sure. I'd take a picture with Obama or Biden, too.
Yeah.
Hell, I'd take a picture with Hunter Biden or Trump Jr. or Barron if I had the opportunity. I wouldn't be like I'm not that type of fanboy on anything. Like I'm not going to like interrupt a meeting lunch. Be like, hey, can I get a picture?
Right.
But if they're at a function and I happen to be there, whatever, and they're doing photo ops, I'm like, sure. I'm not going to buy a picture. I'm not going to do that weird ass fundraising thing. That's fucking.
Or I thought it'd be $20. Like, yeah. Wait, what? You guys asked me if I wanted a picture.
Yeah.
I thought you were offering it.
I took the picture with my phone. What do you like? What's the $20 for? 12 seconds of space near me costs $20.
Right.
But I don't know. I wouldn't do it as a participant in a fundraiser, as far as doing that whole thing, which they do. That's a normal thing that politicians do. Like when Boebert came for the Republican annual event, their big fundraising event last year.
No.
Lauren Boebert came and she was the speaker, the main speaker in the big Republican, the Knox County Republican party's. The Democrats do the Truman dinner, and I can't remember. I think is it the Lincoln dinner? I can't remember what the Republicans call it, but it's their big annual fundraising event.
Yeah,
and they'll bring in, Matt always brings in it's like a senator from Alabama or Mississippi or something like that. It's a Democratic senator. I can't remember. It's like 2 or 3 years in a row we brought the same guy in.
Right.
And then everybody was given what's-his-face a big bunch of shit because he brought in Charlie Kirk the first year. He was the party chair, and then he had Boebert the last year. And then he decided not to run again, and now he's running for law director.
Who is?
I don't know why I was forgetting his name. Dude, there was the Knox County Republican Party chair.
No. Daniel?
Yeah, Herrera. Yeah. But like a bunch of people were giving him shit for bringing Charlie Kirk in because Charlie Kirk cost like $100 and something grand to come.
Cool. But
Boebert, because she's actually an elected person, Charlie Kirk isn't. When she came and did her thing, there was a part of the fundraising event was like it's $20 to take a picture with Lauren Boebert. And I don't know exactly how it broke down, but I assume like $10 went to the Knox County Republican Party and $10 went to Boebert's campaign, whatever.
Yeah.
Which, that's fine. If that's clearly stated that that's part of the process and you wanted to go through that, cool. Have at it. But I wouldn't do that because I'm not going to donate.
Right. No, it still seems kind of like dirty in my mind, but it is what it is.
If it's up front, I'm cool with it. But if it was like your joke where you take the picture, like you're walking down, you're walking through the main hallway in the mall and you see President Trump over there and he's walking down the hallway and you go, hey, Trump, can I get a picture with you? He's like, yeah, come here. And you take a picture and then like some handler comes over. He's like, that's $150.
Right.
Like, what's $150 to have a picture with the president? It's like, no, I didn't. That was not part of the agreement. Like there was that was not discussed anywhere in this process. You can't just say.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming you already had to pay for, it's probably $1,000 a plate or whatever this like dinner,
for
luncheon.
The dinner thing. Yeah.
I mean, that's the fundraising. I don't know why you got to like add shit onto it.
Because politics is a multi-gajillion-dollar industry, and they need more money. I still don't. That's another one of those things I don't like. It boggles my brain. Oh, did you hear Kennedy is running as an independent?
Yeah. What was it? It was like 4 or 5 million or something. He had in like the first 10 hours or so of announcing it.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, I think he has he has the gravitas, if you will, of the namesake and stuff like that, and the history to get it closer to a Perot run than we've seen in a third-party candidate in a while. I mean, that was Perot's thing. He had the money to buy it. Do you remember any of that when Perot was happening? Like he bought, he had bought like a 30-minute primetime block, or maybe even an hour primetime block on like NBC and CBS, and did like an hour-long infomercial on himself.
That I don't remember.
Yeah.
I remember him like funding his own campaign or whatever.
Yeah, he did a bunch of stuff like that where he forced the issue because he could afford it. And I think Kennedy already has some of the name recognition in play, and I think he has the ability to. I think he might be able to force the issue to make him a more, not real viable, not in the sense that he could win, but in that he could get a big enough chunk that it gets at a Perot level. Because it was like 20% for Perot or something like that. 18.
I can't remember.
It was up there in the double digits. It's well over the Libertarian Party's standard 3.5%.
I did say, I think you had mentioned it a few weeks ago about Cornel West leaving the Green Party.
Well, he'd left the Something People's Party and went to the Green Party.
Oh, now he's left the Green Party.
And I heard that too, and he's going to run as a fully independent as well. The other thing that Kennedy and I guess Cornel West have to deal with too is ballot access. That's another issue for them, especially as true independents. There was rumor, and I don't think, as I understand the Libertarian Party as of right now, they wouldn't have had him, I don't think. But there was rumor that that Kennedy was going to try to run as a Libertarian.
Did you almost say libtard?
I don't think so.
Okay, thought you were about to.
I mean, that's a different take. But anyway, it's so. Anyway, I know it's going to be fun to watch. But what's crazy about the Kennedy thing is that, like most analysts that I've listened to, at least on it, when you get down to brass tacks, he'll probably take more Trump voters than he would Biden voters anyway.
Think so?
I mean,
wait, Cornel West or sorry,
Kennedy.
Kennedy, gotcha. Most likely, yeah.
Why do you think?
Why do I think?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say most recently he's been more famous for being anti-vax and kind of more with COVID regulations and whatnot. I'd say he's gotten a bigger following just in the past few years, just from that alone.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard as well. And it like, what's funny is I can't remember who it was, but it's somebody that's like a Republican mouthpiece kind of guy who has a podcast, stuff like that. Not Ben Shapiro, but somebody of that ilk, who like 2 months ago was praising Kennedy because, he was a primary challenge to Biden, and that was a good thing politically for the Republicans.
Yeah.
And now that he's running as independent, they're just blasting him. But the thing was, is he flat called, like he did this, I can't remember who the guy was, but he said it. He's like, look, I was supportive of Kennedy when he was a problem for Biden. I'm not going to be supportive of Kennedy when he's a problem for Trump. And so, like, he was flat out, like, at least he was honest,
I guess,
about his divisiveness. But either way, it's like, it's just been a fight. I think Shapiro's always been a Trump hater, so that's not going to change from his show.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, Shapiro's always been he's not a real, you want to talk about rhinos and shit like that. Like, Shapiro's always thought of Trump as a rhino. It's like, this guy's not a Republican. Now, on certain issues, he likes Trump because he leans on kind of a Republican morals or whatever. But
yeah, a lot of Republicans have turned on him. I guess he made some ill comments or ill-perceived comments of the Israeli-Hamas conflict that's going on now.
Who did, Ben?
Trump.
Oh, Trump.
Yeah. Basically, I guess he was like shitting on Netanyahu.
Right.
Bibi.
Well, which is, I mean, I don't. That's what's weird about it is like one and for all for.
Well, apparently it was like shit that happened like 4 or 5 years ago. And it's like, okay, like why are you bringing this shit up now?
I mean, what's weird in not just in this particular with the Trump getting some flack for hating on Netanyahu, but what's like again we've talked about this like years ago on the show. It's like I don't understand our relationship with Israel. I never have.
Yeah, it's complex.
I mean, I agree with that, and I'm getting better understanding of it now because it's a front and center issue, and a lot of people are talking about it. That's all that my Breaking Points contest. That's almost 80% of what they've done all week this week was cover the specifics of what's happening there. But then they would try to contextualize as best they can. But it's 100 years now since the formation of Israel. Not quite.
It's like 47, 48, 1947 or 48.
So 75 years.
Yeah,
something like that. And
I'm assuming we had a major part in the founding of it. I don't really know.
But this place from from day one has been a controversial issue in the region, and it's been a constant kind of churn of shit. And so, they're talking about the 6 Days War and the 32-hour war and all the different, like, open conflicts that they've had in those two. Well, I mean, and again, it's one of those weirdisms, like, it's like Taiwan for us. It's like, well, if we're talking to the Chinese diplomats, Taiwan is China. But if we're talking to, like, our European allies, Taiwan's its own country.
Yeah.
And I think Gaza is the same way. It's like, well, it's not really its own country technically at all, but depending on who we're talking to, it depends on how much of its own entity we consider it to be.
Yeah.
Because it's fucking crazy. But yeah, I did hear Trump getting into it with Netanyahu about it or whatever, or on not Netanyahu.
Yeah, I think it was like mainly it was when we, I wouldn't say rightfully, but when we took out, it was like an Iranian general, Soleimani.
Soleimani, yeah, I remember that episode.
Yeah, apparently I guess Trump was saying, he's like, that Israel was with us up until like the night before, and then they called and were like, yeah, we're not going to be a part of that. So basically, I guess it was like calling him out for like backing out. And I don't think he said, so much as like he couldn't be trusted, but I guess he was like giving him shit for like backing out last minute or something. It was like, why are you talking about this shit now?
Because it's a hot topic to talk about.
An idea like 5 years ago that has to do with us bombing an Iranian general in Iraq.
I mean, it's some sort of angling that Trump's trying to work on, whatever it is. I mean, because
be tough.
Israel and
if I were in power, things would be so much different right now.
I mean, he could say that.
Right.
Doesn't make it true, but he could say it.
No, people will believe it though.
Yeah, people will, and it could be true. We don't know.
It's just like if I was in power, I would have told Putin to cut that out, and he would have listened to me.
He would have.
Right.
Because we're buddies. He helped me get here.
Yeah.
Why would he not listen to me if he put me in the seat?
It was an interesting story of or take of Hitchens, but it was George W. whenever he was president and like meeting Putin or whatever. That apparently Putin put on a crucifix, and George Bush said, and you looked him to his eyes and could tell he was like a good person. But Hitchens was pointing out, and he was like, can you find any other times that Putin can be seen wearing a crucifix? Like it was all just kind of like basically playing George W. Bush.
Sure.
Like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. You can trust me.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, it works. I mean,
I guess.
But anyway, back to the judge thing. We got way off topic. So the back of
Rawson had a picture, or
right, Rawson had done some introductions at a Trump event in Knox County.
Let's make sure I wouldn't.
He didn't introduce any speakers or anything, but I guess he was asked if he wanted to be a part of it, and he said sure.
Yeah. And
they said, and so I mean, as I understand it, I haven't seen the footage or anything, but he got up on stage and said, "Now to introduce Jim Bob to say the prayer," and Jim Bob says the prayer before the event starts. And now I'm introducing blah 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 to sing the national anthem.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to start the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance, and they start the pledge or whatever. Like that's it. That's what he did.
Yeah. Semi-MC.
Right. And then, whether that was an effective strategy on the Calvinist camp to get people to not like Rawson or whatever. Rawson then went and kicked himself right in the nuts later on this week by holding a campaign press conference to announce that Mary Ward and the other, I can't remember who the other person who was running for judge who lost in the primary, are both endorsing him. And part of that press conference had that other candidate, I can't remember who it is, said, I've decided to endorse Mr. Rawson. He's been a great judge. The institutional knowledge that he has from being here for so long, blah, 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 blah. And then he read a statement from Mary Ward, same kind of thing, which is a complete, the venue was the problem. The press conference itself wasn't. The venue was his courtroom.
Aha. Yeah. Yeah. Not a good move.
I mean, it is a clear and undeniable ethics violation.
Well, I mean, I was going to say like maybe out front, but you're still on the grounds on federal property, essentially.
Right. Well, now, like historically speaking, yes, some people do. That's not an uncommon one for people to be out in the yard in front of the city-county building to do something like that.
Yeah.
Do an announcement or something like that. But inside,
right.
Using city or county property, using city or county resources, as in,
power.
The electricity, but I mean, like it's the new safety complex. The new courtroom. He was part of it was he's bragging about the new courtroom he got in the new safety complex and showing off the new technology that the new courtroom has to make things go smoother. Blah 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 blah. Which in and of itself, as the current judge, whether he's campaigning or not, would be. I think that by itself probably would have been okay, as long as he didn't end the statement with "vote for me." Yeah. Like I think it's like, hey, I just wanted to show everybody the cool new features in this new courtroom that we built here in the new center. That by itself probably would have been fine. But
or even doing just a
press tour,
or like a campaign commercial or whatever, but showing clips of like, hey, blah blah blah.
Right.
Look what I did.
Maybe that one would be a little bit. That would depend on how the clips were obtained, but like if he and his campaign did that in off hours and it didn't involve like it didn't involve any expense to the city, I would probably be fine. But anyway, so he kind of got in trouble for that, but there's really no penalty. He might get a letter of reprimand from the state's attorney general saying you shouldn't have done that.
I'd be curious to get
Chris Davis's take
on it. Yeah.
I mean, it was, I'll tell you what Chris Davis would say. If somebody wants to bring up an issue, they need to take it to Sharmalan's office, and Sharmalan needs to decide whether if there's enough of case there, because it's not illegal. That's the other thing about it. It's an ethics violation. It's not a crime.
Right.
If it was a criminal thing, it would be Chris Davis would say go to Sharmalan. If Sharmalan thinks that there's enough there to prosecute, then if they prosecute, then the election commission will react accordingly.
Yeah.
So, Chris Davis, you got mentioned.
Keep running.
Faster. Yeah, so that happened. Pride Parade was last weekend while we were taping.
Mm-hmm.
Proud Boys, apparently we have a small Proud Boys contingent here in Knox County.
Cool. I didn't hear anything about that.
They kind of, like half a dozen dudes kind of showed up nearby in their attire and whatnot. And apparently were minorly harassing a few people or whatever. Which is not okay.
Right.
Or like, here's where the line gets weird for me in that conversation. It's like if they're harassing, like legitimately like yelling at people and getting in people's way as they're trying to pass or whatever on a sidewalk or something like that, that's harassment. That's a problem. You need to stop. That's not okay. But
I'm not sure what all events were going on. 'Cause it was like for 3 days. Right.
The parade was Friday, and then it was like kind of a fair on Saturday, and there was a concert on Sunday.
Gotcha.
It was Gay Street, Market Square, and then World's Fair, respectively. So anyway, like the problem I have in some of the arguments that were going on about this whole Proud Boys were out thing is if they're just standing on a corner in their stupid outfits with their stupid black and yellow masks, just standing there, that's not criminal.
Right.
And there were people like, where are the cops? Why isn't KPD down there doing something about it? It's like they're just fucking people in stupid outfits standing around.
Right.
Now, you can get a little uncomfortable with the fact that a good handful of them were openly carrying. That's a thing for people, and I understand that makes people uncomfortable or whatever, but that's not criminal. None of it's criminal. And like, I guess maybe depending on exactly which piece of property they were on or near, there might be a loitering issue if they're standing around in a place that says no loitering. Yeah. But, like, KPD's stance on it. KPD was there. They knew they were there. They were keeping an eye on it, but they weren't interacting with them. They just were like a block away, keeping an eye on what's going on.
I remember 10, 15 years ago, I think it was probably on like some major cities, but there were some ordinances that were passed that about like a set number of people like congregating together was like automatically like constituted as a gang. It was like if like 6 or more people like are just like hanging out on a corner, they could be cited for like gang-related activity or something just because they were a group of people like all congregated together.
And you could see the honest place where something like that might have come from.
Right.
But how ridiculous it is once you say it out loud and try to apply it universally.
Right.
Because
that was just our meeting spot. Like
I would love to see.
I brought a friend, they brought a friend, they brought a friend, and they brought a friend. Like there was 8 of us.
Like the parking lot at Krispy Kreme.
Yeah.
There was like 8 or 10 dudes hanging out in the corner of that parking lot at Krispy Kreme, and they're all wearing the same outfits. Looks like a gang to me.
Right.
That's a cop joke. Anyway,
flew right over my head. Nice try though.
No, you didn't. Anyway, it was a donut cop joke. I'm sorry, it was bad. It's weak sauce. But yes, that seems ridiculous as an attempt. Like again, I could see the honest place of where it came from, where they're like somebody's like, well, we got to do something about all the gang activity.
Right. People just congregating on a corner together all the time.
Where would you prefer they congregate?
Right. You got to be spaced out.
Social distancing, people. It's for safety. So you sent me a couple. The Politico one wouldn't open. Every time I try to open it, it gives me a blank.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. So you sent me some funny ass deer shit too, which I already opened that one. I don't need to open that again. But yeah, the Political article just opens this. So they've removed. I mean, I'm assuming they've taken it down.
No.
Huh?
No.
Why can't I get to it then? Yeah, it does the same thing on my phone as it does on my computer. Like, I'm just not allowed to have access to Politico?
I'll go to, like, magazine or, like, news/magazine.
Oh, helps if I can spell.
Sometimes. Websites prefer it.
I mean, they just changed the numbers. No, I can't go to politico.com/news.
No, click on the news or whatever. Sorry, I thought that was the part of the link was like the /news or something. I think it was under, I guess, like their magazine.
Right, I don't see it. Help me out. What I'm looking for.
Oh, scroll down. I'll see if you see magazine in there. Congress, blah, blah, blah. I was just sent it to you to read at some point. I was like, I didn't really want to delve into it.
Okay, well, we can't because I can't open it. There's magazine.
Right.
Which one?
Right there. Will the U.S. be the next? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's relatively long, but...
All right, I'll save that for later. I just wanted to check it out. All right, so the other one you sent me was this lawsuits mounting thing.
Yeah, I think I read through most of this one.
You read it, or we'll just do it? We'll watch it.
Well, now tack on a few others that aren't from the city, and you'll come to find Tennessee is spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, to fight for loss.
The city of Nashville filed another lawsuit against...
This is from WATE, but this is Nashville's... This is actually a Nashville report from WKRN in Nashville. Anyway, mounting lawsuits against the state.
The state yesterday. This one over the state passing a bill to take over nearly half of the seats on Metro Nashville's sports authority.
That's the process, and those make their way through the court, and then the court determines whether a piece of legislation should stand or not. And for every one of those, we'll see how they turn out.
All right, so I wanted to do it like chunks. We could stop it and talk about it and go on. All right, so just to make sure if I'm understanding correctly what's happening here, is we got a bunch of lawsuits. The state of Tennessee is getting sued by the city of Nashville, specifically like 4 different cases right now involving, this one specifically they brought up is involving the state wants to change the way the city, Metro Nashville's Sports Authority is made up of, how it's made up. That's what they're referencing off the top here.
I think so, yeah.
And so it's like a 20-something member sports authority. The state wants to cut it in half or replace half of it with a state-appointed people instead of Metro Nashville appointed people, which Nashville says no thank you. Now, there's a couple different parts I wanted to kind of break down as we're going through this, as I understand it. Dollars and cents here. This is Nashville residents are getting taxed twice on this because they're paying both sides of the legal bills, which is fuckery.
Well, the whole state is.
Right, but the whole state's paying the state side of it, and the city of Nashville is paying for the lawyers for the city of Nashville to file suit.
Yeah.
So, city of Nashville residents are paying for it as the plaintiff and the defendant, essentially.
Possibly.
I wouldn't say how they wouldn't be, unless it's a pro bono lawyer suing the state. I mean, I guess the city lawyer who's on staff at the city could be the one filing the lawsuit.
No idea.
But I would bet that's a special one. Anyway, go ahead.
Between those 4 lawsuits and numerous others from the ACLU and Planned Parenthood around abortion and LGBTQ rights, the state is quickly racking up litigation and legal fees.
The Super Bowl will be coming here when that new stadium's built. Again, I think they just want to cling on to something that's successful.
A few years ago,
So who was that? What was that guy's name? Did you catch it?
State allocated...
I think they just built...
racking up litigation and legal fees.
The Super Bowl will be coming here when that new stadium's built. Again, I think they just want to cling on to something that's successful.
A few years ago,
So that was a rep from Nashville in the State House
Right.
who is saying they just want to cling on to something, meaning the Republicans in the state, I presume, is what the statement is. So, but what he's alleging in that statement, this is why I wanted to break it down, because I want you to help me understand it, because I was really confused. I didn't think this was a very well put together article.
I didn't say I understood it either. I was more just talking about the numbers.
Right, which we haven't paused. I accidentally paused it here on it. Some millions and millions of dollars in lawsuits. But what I was taking from that guy's statement was that the Republicans in the state are trying to insert themselves into the sports authority so that they can take credit for the victory that is going to be the new stadium that's going to get the Super Bowl here.
Possibly.
the state allocated just under $300,000 for special litigation, which funds the use of private counsel for complex or special litigation cases requiring particular expertise.
So about $300,000.
Now that fund has increased to over $4 million. Just looking at the Attorney General's office alone, the state payroll budget this year was nearly $52 million, up from just $36 million a few years ago.
At the end of the day, we're
some
here
of the
to...
numbers that I was talking about. I was like, man, I'm talking about, like, damn.
I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, it literally went from $300,000 to $4.2 million.
Right.
But I mean, I guess the city versus the state is one thing. Like, I don't know how that plays in state Supreme Court issues and stuff like that, because I don't know. Like, because to me, the bare minimum basic understanding of the way state and local government work is the state supersedes everything.
Well, I think Nashville, like us, kind of has that little bit home rule
thing, which
right.
That's
what I think that guy was, or that representative was kind of talking about it. I think it's more
like we're doing good
probably
things
more people
here in
on the right that
is growing.
Well, they've tried to split up redistricting, and I think they're trying to take away the power of, I guess.
Right, because I know one of the other ones they were trying to break down their total city council from like 40 to 20 as well. That was one of the other lawsuits that the city of Nashville was going against the state on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. Yeah, they're doing something like that.
But even I don't know the home rule thing very well. But even inside of that home rule exists because the state says it can. And so if the state says they don't want to deal with it anymore, the state doesn't have to deal with it anymore. That's the way I understand it.
I'm assuming it's probably a part of the state constitution, which is like most things, to amend the constitution would be quite
That's
a
a
hurdle.
valid point. That would be something to dig into. But again, to me, for the most part, the buck stops at the state, at the state government. Like, they can break it down, and like it's. My take on it has always been, it's kind of like, yeah, the piddly little shit, your school boards and your county mayors and stuff like that. You guys fucking deal with that, or just do whatever you want. Just leave us alone. Just don't fuck with what we're doing here in the state. And essentially the state says, well, especially you democratic cities.
But it's not the state sports authority. It's the city of Nashville Sport Authority.
But again, my point is, as I understand it, it's the state first, the city are second, as far as authority on a situation. The state gets the ultimate end authority on any of it.
But why in this situation should the state have power over what Nashville decides to do with their...
on a philosophical level, I don't think it should, but that's not my point. I think on a legal level, it's...
On a legal level, why should the state have control over what happens? I understand it's the capital, but why should the state have power over what the city decides what they want to do? They're asking for state funds for it. Or they've already been allocated state funds for it, so I guess that gives the state a little bit more leeway in it.
Because as I understand it, the city only exists at the behest, if that's the right word, or at the willingness of the state to allow it to exist. The cities and counties, as they incorporate and do all the little legal mumbo jumbo that it is they're literally asking the state for permission to exist.
So this is just
form their own government,
just under the guise of, if you don't, we can just dissolve you?
I would, yeah, at some level. As I understand it.
Okay, so we're going to govern by threat now.
Now, which one? Well, which part of this are we trying to take apart right now? Are we discussing the philosophical should and shouldn'ts, or are we discussing the legal reality of what is?
The legal reality of what is.
Okay, so the legal reality of what is, as I understand it, is yes, at the end of the day, if the state wants to do whatever they want to do in Knox County or Shelby County or whatever, they have the authority to do so. Now, I know there's some regulating factors where they can't apply certain things to certain places that don't apply to the state as a whole, and there's some different isms and whatnots and rules on how some of that breaks down. They can't, just say, well, Shelby County has to do this, and only Shelby County has to do it. Like, I know that was one of the things with the voucher testing program or whatever, is that they didn't want to do, which eventually it was found that they were allowed to do it. So the Shelby County Education Savings Program or whatever it is went into effect because the lawsuit put it on hold, but when it finally got to where it needed to get to, that court said, well, the state has the final authority on how to do this, so they could do that if they want to.
I don't know.
I mean, my point. I mean, again, on the should, no. Like, to me, no. I think it would be, we would all be better off if our most local of governments had the most functional, normal, day-to-day impact on our life. I think we would all be better off if that was the system. Like, I mean, I joke about it all the time. My dream scenario would be we'd have a very super libertarian federal government, we'd have a super Republican state government, and we'd have whichever local government the local people want. Meaning that the federal government goes as little as they can, does as little as they have to, it stays out of the way. The state government gets somewhere in the middle, and then the local government really gets the brass tacks of how to get things done. With some oversight in the sense that, we can't have a, like some random, Cumberland County deciding to reinstate slavery or anything like that. But, outside of like outside of top level constitutional civil rights issues and stuff like that, then I think local government should be able to do a lot of stuff. Because like, I would be perfectly okay. I don't know if I want that personally, and I don't know if I would stay in Knoxville if that's what Knoxville became. But if Knoxville wants to become like a very like full-on socialist, we pay like 80-something% in income tax and a huge sales tax and all that kind of shit, but all the little ins and outs are way better, and I don't have to pay for healthcare, or there's a bus that picks up and all the kind of cool stuff. Like if it was a well-functioning machine, okay, that's an option. If I wanted to vote for that and that's what I wanted to be a part of, I could get into that if that's what we as a community wanted.
Yeah. Just a weird little aside real quick. It just reminded me of the story I read. I don't know how big the town was, and I don't remember what state it was in, but apparently they got rid of their public transit, and they actually started using essentially like ride-sharing program. I think they were kind of doing their own type thing where it was almost, I guess, like, city-funded taxes, and apparently it's been working out pretty well.
It's not a bad idea.
I'm assuming it would only work at, probably a town of probably like 30,000 people or so, but that was kind of interesting. I'm like, I mean, they didn't have buses running up, but all of a sudden, people were like, hey, I need a ride to the doctor, and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll send somebody over.
Yeah. I don't know.
I was like, huh.
I could see that. I mean, with the ridership that cat buses get.
Yeah.
And the cost of buses and the cost to keep the buses maintained and the cost of drivers and stuff like that, I'd say in Knoxville that would probably be a cheaper option than cat bus service. Now, how many more people would use it because it's actually functionally useful might change things.
Well, we have a few different versions of it. There's like the CAC and ETHRA and whatnot.
Yeah. But those are, and I mean, I don't know exactly how those work, but again, they're always buses. But like, how many people? Like, that's the thing about buses that always drive me crazy.
I know.
You never see anybody on them.
Right.
So why do we have a bus? Let's go to they're cats transferring to an electric fleet.
Well, I think there's a lot more people that use it closer to downtown. I don't think we see it as much out this way. But again, I think it's. I
mean, at least on the Central Corridor, I never see anybody on that bus that runs up and down Central from downtown to the top of Central.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it goes like it stops at the projects.
Yeah.
So. Anyway. So to try to bring it back in is that I think, as I understand it legally, the state has the final authority on it. Now that doesn't supersede a organization or a city, being an organization in and of itself, from filing suit against the state, either on federal legal grounds or on state constitutional grounds, on saying, well, you can't do that, even though you can do about whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't really know what this lawsuit has to do with the whole sports authority. If it's just because they're wanting to bring in state oversight of it, or they want state input in the sports authority, and they're kind of forcing state people into the...
Philosophically, I think it's inappropriate. I think it's 100% inappropriate. I think you need to be able to, as much as you're the Republican supermajority that has to be in this liberal-ass city of Nashville and do your job, You need to respect the fact that the liberal-ass city does what it does.
I mean, I doubt the city could do it. Maybe the city should threaten to do what Sexton's doing with the education or whatever. Or wasn't going to take federal education funds just so they could turn around and not have to be beholden to federal guidelines.
You would. I mean, you could do that, but it doesn't. But that doesn't change the state's ability to step in if they want to. Anyway, federal government's a different animal. They can't. Federal government can't come in and change Tennessee law unless it's actually against the U.S. Constitution. And even then, it's a little dicey.
I think it's changing the law, but I guess the federal standards or something. That basically somehow, if we didn't take federal dollars for education, I'm assuming they're trying to say that the federal government can't
to the federal standards. Which I don't think. I mean, I don't know exactly how the education one works, but at some level, it's a lot harder for the U.S. government to get in and meddle in.
Well, I think that's one of the few grounds where they are able to. It's like, well, if you're taking federal funds, then you have to have A, B, and C or whatever.
Right. We'll give you this money, but strings are attached.
Right.
And if you don't want to follow the strings that are attached, then you just don't take the money.
Right.
And so that's Sexton's stance is like, well, we don't want your strings, so we're not going to take your money. Yeah. Which, I don't know the details and breakdown of it. There's cases where I could probably agree with that argument.
That sounds more like rhetoric to me. I don't see it functionally happening.
This happened like last week or week before last, where the state GOP was all bent out of shape about the federal government just bypassing them altogether and putting money directly into Planned Parenthood instead of putting it into the state coffers and then into it. And it was like fucking like $5 million or something silly little like that. And so
I didn't hear about that.
In one hand, the state's pissed off because the federal government's not giving them money. And then in the other hand, Sexton's over here talking about, hey, you keep your $15 or $55 million or whatever it is in education funding because we don't need it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, just general inconsistency and logic here. Do you want federal money or not? And if the federal government wants to spend their money, like, it's a question, I don't know. If the federal government wants to spend money on Knox County schools, even though the state of Tennessee doesn't want them, that gets a little dicey. But if the federal government wanted to spend money on a private school in Knox County, the state of Tennessee can't really do shit about that.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what the federal government did. They're putting their money directly into Planned Parenthood, a private organization, 501c3 or whatever the fuck they are, but a private organization nonetheless, and the state can't do anything to stop them.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, it's just funny that this the idea that you were bitching about not getting $5 million while at the same time talking about refusing like 60.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
we wanted control of it.
Right. We just want the money, which, at the end of the day, that's all that anybody really cares about, at least in those seats. Moving on.
That was crazy. Just
pass bills.
What?
I was going to say, I thought you were getting to the end of it or whatever.
The people want us to pass, and some of those things like transgender.
That statement right there is my favorite of the thing.
The people want us to pass, and some of
dollars a few years ago.
At the end of the day, we're here to pass bills that the people want us to pass, and some of those things like transgender against Vanderbilt, we got sued, but that's where Tennesseans are.
That money.
False statement. I don't think that is true. No. I would like to see the data for that statement.
It's a vagary.
It's not a vagary. It's true, and it's true in the sense that the Republican supermajority, whom he has a pretty good control over and telling them what they do and don't vote for, that they want to make this issue an issue.
Right.
And
he's not lying when he says Tennesseans. Like whether it's one or two, you're still Tennesseans.
Well, but by definition, those people represent the majority of Tennesseans in their districts. But the people that live in their districts agreeing or disagreeing with that particular bill is a long stretch of reality.
Yeah.
Like, I would be curious. I would love to. I did get to meet Elaine Davis a couple weeks ago. I'm going to talk about that last week. And I did invite her to come on here and hang out at some point. She's getting ready to full campaign mode. But I would love, this is one of those questions that I can't ever ask, but I would love to ask, like, how many emails did you get on Topic X? How many of these emails told you to or not to vote for Topic X? Do you track that? Like, do you actually pay attention to it, or is it just kind of I understand it's your staff, it's not you personally, but does your staff actually track it and be like, hey, we got 7,000 emails on this thing, 4,000 were yay, 3,000 were nay?
Yeah.
Or is it just you've already decided what you're going to do, and you're going to cite the X number that agrees with what you're doing, and completely neglect the number that was against what you're saying.
Right.
Find me 3 emails that say, this is what I want you to do, Elaine Davis. And again, it's not picking on Elaine per se. I think that's universal.
Yeah.
For any of them. Anyway, let's finish this out and we'll move on.
It has to come from somewhere, and most of it comes from state taxpayers. I had to wonder, is that fair to the Tennessee taxpayer?
On some of these policies that we pass, the left does not like what we're doing. And so they're going to sue us. And that's just part of it. But you don't limit what you think you should do because someone's going to threaten a lawsuit against you.
And it isn't just Nashvillians paying for lawsuits the city brings against the state. Taxpayers across Tennessee are footing that bill. In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
Thank you, Chris O'Brien.
Sexton did mention new mayor. Freddie O'Connell inherited the previous mayor's issue.
I don't care about whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I end of the day, and the way the U.S. legal system works, as I understand it at least, you can kind of sue anybody over anything. And if I disagree with the sense of a bill, I could try to sue the state for it, and there's a cost that's going to go into that.
Is this just a civil suit?
Yeah, I mean it's the city of Nashville versus the state of Tennessee. It's not NAACP, ACLU versus the state of Tennessee. So when you have a couple of years in a row that have had pretty consequential sessions as far as some pretty high profile, highly divisive, for lack of a better word, topics come up. Like the couple with Nashville. I mean, I think the state legislature has been proven to be very adversarial to the local metropolitan areas whom are left-leaning strongholds. I mean, when you get down to the electoral map of the state of Tennessee and watch a governor's race break down, it's pretty straightforward. Like, Knoxville is the least blue of the 5 major cities. Maybe not. Maybe Johnson City. Bristol. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah.
Anyway, Knoxville is more of a middle ground, but Nashville is super blue. Memphis is super blue. Chattanooga is blue. Knoxville is getting bluer by the cycle. And I don't know where Bristol Tri-Cities is at, but I'm sure they're about the same as Knoxville. And when you're looking at your electoral map and you're the Republican supermajority, you're like, well, these fuckers they're growing every cycle. They're getting bigger.
Yeah, but I wonder how red the quote unquote red, districts and counties are throughout the rest of the state.
Yeah.
I mean, I doubt it's like, 90% to 10% or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Like a Campbell County out in Podunk's like a 60-40, maybe a 65-35 county.
Yeah. On
a gubernatorial race, depending on the candidate.
I'd say it's probably a good average.
And I think Knox County is like a 51-49, 52. Knox County is like a couple percentage points. Now Memphis and Nashville are probably 60-40 blue, but they're not 80-90% blue,
right?
And so, obviously the Republican still won the governor's seat.
Yeah.
So it's not like I don't know. It's just just as my consistent over and over again stupid thing that drives people nuts, that drives me nuts. I don't know what a Republican is, and if Republicans in the state of Tennessee were what I was told Republicans are, then they don't care. They're not supposed to care about what Nashville is doing with their own government. They're supposed to care about making the state government small, not overly intrusive, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And by definition, when you're going in trying to change a local government because you don't like the way that local government's doing things, you are being intrusive, which by definition, as I understood it at least, is not a very Republican-y value. And so on the philosophical level, again, it underscores my point is that they're Republican and Democrat are just made up words for people that want to do shit, and they just make up ways to make it apply.
That's a lot of the English language, though.
Sure, they use it. They use it in their favor. I don't know. It's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit words that don't mean anything. It means whatever they want it to mean at the time they use it. But I mean, we make real decisions off of that, and that's what I guess is the problem with it. Like, people really don't care. Vote blue no matter who. Republican, or I don't know. I don't know if there's a rhyme scheme for the Republican one, but Trump or die. Vote blue no matter who, and it's like, well, this is what we get when we play that game. We get a Trump-Biden rematch.
Trump or you're a chump.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Whatever. I don't know.
I don't want to be giving him the good one.
That actually is.
That's a zinger.
If you're listening, Trump, that's copywritten. I filled out the paperwork right now. So before this releases, that is a copywritten phrase. If you want to use that, you need to write us, and we'll work out a licensure for that phrase.
Oh, yeah.
Did you hear?
Just don't sue me.
I heard this. This is one of the crazy internet things. That there is some like Twitter bots and stuff like that who have been designed with AI that they crawl when they find a post where somebody in the post, like in a comment on the post, says something along the lines of they should make a T-shirt of that. This algorithm AI bot thing will conglomerate that, and like you know of the T-shirt companies that do like the limited print where it's like, we're gonna do baseball shirts for our baseball club. Everybody orders their shirts, and then the shirts get printed, but like the website does it for them.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It basically feeds all that into this thing automatically, and then generates a ad to people that would have seen that thing for the T-shirt of whatever the reference was.
Yeah, I hadn't heard this.
Yeah, it was one of the comedians. I think it was on Rogan. I don't know. It was a comedian who was talking about it. He's like, I heard about this thing, and somebody was explaining it to me, and I've seen it a couple times since. And so he's like, anytime I comment on anything, the first thing I say is they should have a T-shirt. It doesn't matter what it is. They should make a T-shirt of that. Just to screw with the algorithm.
People have done it.
Yeah.
Just to
screw with the algorithm. I love it.
Fuck with AI and whatnot. There's only I've heard of like that. I guess there's a lot of like AI now that's just like fueling divisiveness and with the rise in politics with so many election cycles going on.
I had The Rock telling me that that Biden was going to make me rich or something in a video game. It was weird.
What?
Yeah. It was an ad it was an in-game ad, and it was a bad deep fake of The Rock. It was not good. But it was something government related, talking about some government stimulus something. It's like, this ain't right at all.
Do you smell a little what I'm talking to you about on your financial statements?
Do you say the food? I don't know. It was.
Don't be a jabroni.
It was quite off-putting, to say the least. I'm trying to think what else I missed. So the bridge that there is no funding for, the pedestrian bridge for the state campus at Knoxville.
I think they just purchased or
the city, KCDC actually. Bought like a $6 million parcel. It's like a acre, 3/4. It's like acre and a half. It's not small considering it's a downtown area, but it's a pretty small piece of land. Like $6 million or whatever. The city council approved that purchase this week, and so congratulations, City of Knoxville residents. You're buying a bridge.
Yay! For
the university, so that they can become landlords and build their own entertainment district. I'm a little mad about that. I don't know if we've talked about that yet. I do not like that entertainment district thing. That thing's happening too. I think it's gross.
Is it only going to benefit UT?
Huh?
Is it only going to benefit UT?
I mean, are we comfortable with the premise? I mean, okay, maybe I'm not that upset about it. Maybe I'll just be a little bit more of a realist about it. I believe that the University of Tennessee is a profit-rearing enterprise in the first place. So for them to be open about being a profit-rearing enterprise, I guess, should be a relief to me instead of upsetting. Because on record, they are stating that this is a profit-rearing enterprise that they want to do this entertainment district for. They want to do this to make money.
Okay. And
I should be pleased that they are being open about that. So I guess I misspoke. But no, I'm not necessarily a fan of the University of Tennessee, who is supposed to be a nonprofit state entity, getting into the landlording business. I don't think that's an appropriate use of state resources. Can you think of other examples where the state is the landlord? I mean, there are ones. I mean, the stadium will be one. I mean, the stadium, the Smoky Stadium will be a landlording thing where the city of Knoxville, city county Sports Authority is the landlord, essentially.
Boyd just owns the surrounding area.
Yeah.
His own district.
But the stadium itself,
right,
which will have a lease with the Smokies baseball organization. So the city county sports authority is technically the landlord of that property. I mean, I don't know who owns the Sunsphere. City of Knoxville.
Well, read they're going to paint it blue. Apparently, that's originally what it was back in during the World's
steel?
Fair itself. Yeah, the steel girders or whatever. Yeah.
No, if that's the original, it gets to it. Get on it. Why did they change it?
I guess it makes sense. I don't know when or why the hell they painted it green, but because it was the Sunsphere, so it was supposed to be a blue sky, so it was originally painted blue.
Right, it's supposed to be like it was floating there. It wasn't supposed to be like it was on a stand.
I think within the next year or so, they're going to repaint it blue again.
Speaking of suns and stuff, we got we were supposed to have like 50-ish%.
Solar eclipse tomorrow.
Yeah, not as cool as we had it a couple of years ago, where we had like the 100% perfect.
Right, I can't remember where the full eclipse was. Part of the U.S., I guess, is going to get to see it.
It's like Seattle for the continental U.S. at least. It's like Seattle to Corpus Christi is like that line.
Path of totality
is the path of totality. Yeah. And as you get further out, we're somewhere. At least according to the Weather Channel, we're on the far west edge, right next to 60%, but we're in the 40% of the way they did their graph.
Yeah.
But we're right on the edge. So it's like it's our time zone thing. So about noon tomorrow, or noon today for you guys listening. If you
don't look directly at it, but
if you want to look up, I mean, that was one of the craziest things ever for us.
Yeah, it was really weird.
That was a great time. I really enjoyed it. It was such a weird, we were just hanging out. It was me and my brother and his kids, our kids, and at my mom's house. Just hanging out. And it was just for no reason. It wasn't it was like a weird Thanksgiving thing. It just didn't it was like a holiday without a holiday.
Yeah, I was working. We went out for 20 minutes while it was going on, and then went back to work.
Yeah, we hung out and ate and just hung outside and played Foursquare in the street and messed around, and all of a sudden it was dark and the cicadas started going and the frogs and stuff started making their ruckus. And then it was really extra bright. That's the weird thing about it, is the post, it gets it feels like it's brighter than it was beforehand. And I think I'm curious how much it's going to be noticeable, given that it's noon. It's supposed to be right around noon when we get it here.
I'd say probably not that noticeable. It's still going to be bright as shit.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a good time. I'm going to make the effort to, I guess, build a box because I don't have any of my eclipse glasses.
Mm-hmm.
That was the crazy part too. We bought them on a lark and we were selling them in the shop.
Yeah.
And they sat there forever and they were $2. They're super cheap.
Yeah, I saw some a week or two ago at a gas station, and I was like, wait, what the fuck is this? And I was like, oh, I think there is one coming up.
And then when it got closer to it, they just went. They were gone, and we couldn't get any more.
Right.
And we found a place, and we got 500 more of them, and we're selling them for $10. And they were flying off the shelf. We had people coming up from Maryville. Somehow people found us that we had them. And it was I guess there were whole Facebook groups and stuff where can I get my eclipse glasses?
Yeah.
There were people calling us from 2 or 3 counties away. You still got any left? It's got a handful here, man. I can't hold them.
Right.
But if you want to get here, if they're here, you're welcome to buy. We started limiting how many you were allowed to buy because we didn't want people. That's a weird one. That's one of those. It was a complicated conversation for me and Max to have on it because party's I don't care if we're selling them for, we're making good money off of them. Somebody wants to buy us out, good for them.
Right.
We made our money. Let's go on with our lives. But then at the same time, it's if he turns around and buys them and is selling them for twice as what we sold them to him for, should we up our price? And it's all back and forth. So it's it's just limited to 5 and see what happens.
Yeah.
So we were only letting people buy 4 or 5 at a time. And so people were coming in groups of 4, and each of them were buying 4.
Right.
So
people will figure out ways to game the system.
Right. Which, I don't know. It's just a weirdism, especially because they're dirt cheap. They're 30 cents a piece.
Right.
We never got to the point. It got kind of late in there where, I saw on Facebook and stuff, people selling for $100 a set. And it's that's dumb.
I remember one years ago at my grandparents' house where I guess maybe it's the box you were talking about, but they just drill a hole in the box, and then the sunlight coming through that box, would project the inside of the box. You could, get a little circle, and you would see the little section that was cut out of it.
Well, like with the one that we had a couple years ago, I remember there was my mom had a tree that had a bunch of caterpillar in it, and so all the leaves had holes in them, and so you could stick your hand out in the shadow of of a leaf where these pinholes were in the leaf from the caterpillars eating holes in them, and you could see it in your hand.
Yeah,
it was so cool. I still don't understand the physics of it, but it was cool. That's the moral of that story. I don't understand how light refraction and
it's just the light coming through.
Yeah, but
there's a section of the sun. So
anyway, it was neat. Is the moral of the story. What else you got?
What's going on in the world?
There's lots going on in the world.
Oh, yeah. In the world of Knoxville or Tennessee. Predators had their first home game last night.
Yeah, we're going here in like a month.
That's right.
So, yeah, hockey's back. Pens are playing right now. I think it's the 66th meeting of.
Was it Capitals Penguins?
It's the 66th time that Sid and Ovechkin have met up. In regular season, or maybe regular season and postseason. I don't think they're counting like all-star games and international games or anything like that. I don't know. I just saw the headline on it. It could be including all the other ones. Future Hall of Famers meet for the 66th time in regular season. That's what the headline was. Yeah, I don't know. Goes into the whole TV thing for me right now. I don't have any access. I don't know. When does NBC start carrying games? Because they do. Like NBC's pretty smart about the way they do their sports coverage.
I want to say TNT got a big contract like last year. There's a bunch of games that were on like TBS and TNT.
Are they NBC? Is that NBC affiliates?
No idea.
Yeah, because because NBC always has the Olympics, and you get to watch the Olympics on USA, TNT, and TBS. Because they got Peacock. So if NBC's got stuff, then Peacock has it, for the most part. Anyway, I don't have access to watch much games anymore, and that's a bummer. I don't watch a lot anyway. I only watched like half my Packers game on Monday Night Football, and it was on ABC instead of just ESPN. So,
sorry, what you just talked about. Apparently, WATE, the headline is Knoxville municipal judge candidate commits campaign violation.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I didn't see this earlier.
I mean, it's just the ooh, Sid just scored. Sweet. Like it doesn't matter. That's the sad part. Like it didn't do anything.
Right.
Like, maybe there are 5 people in Knoxville who might not vote for him that were going to vote for him because he broke an ethics code. I don't see, I kind of don't see him. I'm curious. I guess it gets out of this. So if you take Rawson, Ward, and the other guy, Ward and the other guy whom has endorsed. So if the endorsement means the votes shift over, that would give Rawson 60% of the voting from the primary. But the other way to look at it, which is Cavanitz's take, is 60% of Knox County, or the city of Knoxville, wanted a different judge, according to the primaries. And so it's going to be an interesting race. It's going to be close. I think so. I think it's going to be a very close race when it gets down to it. Because, they're both right. If you get down to it, it's like Cavanitz's statement that in the primary, the voting showed that 60% of the people who voted wanted a different judge than you. Because Rawson only got 40%. Because if you would have gotten over 50%, he already won. You didn't have to go through this process.
Right.
And so,
essentially, there were 4 candidates total.
Right. The majority of people wanted somebody new. But the other 2 people who took, so essentially, I think Cavanitz had like 38%. It was like 40%, 38%, and then the other 2 combined for whatever the leftovers are. 20. They combined for 20%. give or take. And so if you just take those people out, it's a 40-39 or a 51-49 kind of split, which would give Rawson just a tiniest of an edge. But I do think there are certainly people who voted for Ward and the other person because they didn't want to see Rawson again. And so I think realistically it's going to be a tight race. I don't know. The other part to me, though, is like what functionally changes. Does it matter? That's the real kind of shtick. And the turnout's going to suck.
Well, you could have a slight shift in...
If they get 20,000 total votes, I'll be surprised. 260, 200 and...
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking maybe like a change in kind of like the judicial system.
What changes? Right. What changes by which one gets elected?
I mean, you could have a judge that's decides to be a little bit lighter on certain traffic offenses or whatever.
Right. But they can't campaign on that. They can't tell us that.
Right.
In the process.
Or someone. I mean, I'd like to see more judges. Give people community service. We got enough shit around town that could use some cleaning up or whatever.
See, but I'd be curious how the process of that works.
Or give them the option of it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you get...
I would think so. I would think that's a great option.
Like, hey, you want a $2,000 fine or...
But the question to me is, like, who actually administers and how much does it cost? Like, how much does community service cost? Like, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, let's go do litter pickup, right?
All right.
Well, there has to be at least somebody from the city that supervises that, but,
No.
So you get to do your community service unsupervised?
Pretty sure.
You just get to go say, yeah, I did my 10 hours today?
Yeah. I mean, it's people that or it's like, drug or alcohol offenders, or you've got to go, do so many meetings. I mean, I sat in meetings at a previous job where, the person that leads the group just signs off that you were there for that meeting.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know about that. But
it depends on, I guess, what community service you want to do. I'm sure there's a wide range of things. You can probably, go do hours at the Boys and Girls Club or at the YMCA or, et cetera. I
mean, again, I don't disagree with you as a net positive. But, I don't know where in the budget fines go. Whether that's, that goes into the city's general fund?
I would assume so.
It goes into KPD's general fund? I don't know. And so the incentive...
Fines are paid to the court, so I guess wherever the court's money goes.
I don't know the answer to that. And so, but again, there's an incentive in that he, that whomever the judge is like, well, I've got to actually at least collect a certain amount in fines, or I have to lay somebody off.
No.
So everybody that works there gets paid through tax revenue.
Right.
So where's the money go?
Where does what money go?
The fines. Where does the fine money go?
So I'm assuming it just goes back into the city's general fund.
Okay. I don't know if that's true or not. That'd be good.
It sounds like you're leaning on the idea that a lot of people they're just giving you fines so they can make money. They're only giving you fines just to make money.
I would assume there is incentive at somewhere in the process. Yes, for that.
Why do you believe this?
Because I would assume that there is that somebody, whether it's the mayor or the city council or some random person who works in some random office of budgets and stuff like that in the city, is like, we need funding for stuff. And there's political need for, whether it's the mayor's office or something like that there's political need to raise some funds for a thing. Hey, Judge, you're giving community service and we don't have any money in the parks kitty or wherever the fuck we usually spend all your fine money on city beautification projects. So they lean on the judge to then increase fines, start giving the maximum allowable fine for an offense? I would say that there is a potential conversation that could be had, yes. Lean on might be an overstatement, but, I don't think any judge would do that. Okay. I mean, who's the judge beholden to? Mayor can't do shit. Mayor can't fire him, pretty sure. I don't think they serve at the behest of the mayor or of the county or the city. Okay. And so, so who do they work for? You're right. I'm with you. Who do they work for? The state people. I mean, so in the particular case, we're talking about the city mayor or city judge. So they work for the constituents. Their constituents. They work for the people of the city of Knoxville. Yeah. Okay. And how did they get that job to work for the city of Knoxville?
They're voted in.
Okay. And so...
For the most part. Not all judges, but yeah.
I mean, this one in particular, because that's what we're talking about. Who do you think is probably the most powerful political player in the city of Knoxville? Who could probably, maybe not snap their fingers.
Say someone probably more behind the scenes than someone actually in a position of power, but that's just guesstimation.
And that's okay. I'll go with your assumption. Okay, somebody behind the scenes who is more powerful than the mayor or this judge, for example, or some of the city councilors and stuff like that, who is the shot caller, as they say, to push people here and move things there to get things the way that they want to see things done. So if they are the most powerful political player in the city, it's probably like not a Burchett, but a Mark Harmon or one of those previously elected players that have stepped out but are still active, I would think. Victor Ashe is probably still a pretty powerful person, politically speaking, in the city of Knoxville. You don't think that person wields some sway over your ability to get elected again?
It's possible, yeah.
And you don't think that at least crosses your mind as a judge, even if impartial as you try to be, when the most powerful political person in Knoxville hints at maybe we need to be delved in a few more fines than community service hours because...
No.
Okay. I can't... I don't know. I've never been in the position, so I couldn't say I would or wouldn't either. But, if you want the job, if you want to keep getting elected, I would say there's somebody that has some say in that you might... at least pause. Maybe not make the decision because they told you to, but at least pause on the decision before going ahead because they said so. Or the group of theys. It doesn't have to be an individual they.
I guess I'm just pushing back against the automatic assumption that just any and all judges are just corruptible and only doing this for benefit of the money.
I guess for a point of clarification, I don't think it's exclusive. I don't narrow it down to just judges.
All right.
I think they're all. I don't think that they're bad people per se. I don't think that they're constantly and significantly corrupted.
But you lean to the belief that most are.
I believe that there is. So because it really comes down to what a more core belief that I have, that altruism is a falsity. I don't believe in altruism. I don't think it's real. Everybody does it for some reason, whether it's their own end or whether it's some other positive end that they get out of it. There's some end that they're chasing, and whether that's a continuation of being an elected and important person, maybe it's just ego. And I want to be the person that I get to go on the news, and the news people want to talk to me about things that are going on in the city. And I want to keep that. And in order to keep that, I have to do X. And it may not be 100% of the time, but it's enough of the time to make sure you keep the seat. Or you keep somewhere involved in the positions of play and whatever. Like, there's a reason.
I don't see fines adding up to paying for everything. I don't think that's their sole source of revenue for the court system.
I didn't say it was.
Well, you make it sound as if that's their only choice of making money and staying afloat, is they've got to keep making money to keep people happy and keep themselves in power.
What I'm making...
that you would think that it would come to the point to where people would have to lean on them to bring in more money, and if they don't...
The hypothetical that I'm putting in play is that I am comfortable saying that there is an incentive for them to lean on fines for some end. That there is an incentive for them. I don't know what the incentive is per se. It could be a very direct incentive that there's actually employees in their office that works for them that they can't pay if they don't get a certain amount of fines in a year. Some quota shit.
I don't think they ever look at that.
I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm throwing examples of possibilities, not of realities.
It's a possibility that you think is highly likely. From the impression that
it is highly likely that there is some incentive for a judge to prefer fining people. Yes, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a direct incentive like that.
That's just one of the general penalties of it. Especially in municipal court. They're not doling out a lot of days in jail. Most of it is fines.
Okay.
Because the slap on the wrist doesn't prevent people from doing shit, so you have to have repercussions for certain actions.
I'm so confused about what we're arguing about right now. So, okay, well...
You're saying they're doing this for funding, and that they've got to look at their books, or else they've got to fire someone. So, in their mind, when they're punishing someone... You think that most of the time, most of the people are sitting there thinking like, oh shit, I don't want to fire so and so, and I've got a range of I can find someone $500 up to $5,000.
I'm not sure if I'm insulted, or if I feel like everybody that I ever talk poorly about should be insulted about what you just said.
How so?
That either they are so simple that it can only be an A-B conversation, that it can't be a bigger, more complex thing that is a factor in a decision, not the exclusive reasoning for, but a factor, a part of it, something that they think about while they're going through a decision, whether it's on this particular topic or many others that we've discussed in the past. That it's the only thing ever and I guess the part that's kind of insulting to me is that I'm trying to how do I word this? That I am trying to say that they're so simple that it has to be so blatantly straightforward, because that's the only way they could possibly be capable of thinking.
This is the only example that you've given me for what we started out in, when I was like, hey, maybe they could go community service or fines. I went into, well, I think they're going to do fines, and people may start.
My return wasn't even that I think they're going to do fines. My return was that I think there is incentive for them to make sure that they do keep continuing to get fines. Not that they exclusively get fines, but I think that there is.
Going off the only other example that you've given me of funding for it.
Which one?
Or that they're only looking at this for funding. I threw a bunch of
random ones that I have no idea if they're true or not out. Because again, we don't know where the money goes. It could go into the city's general coffers, and that city general coffer goes into 1,000 different things. Right. And so it could be very possible that a random parks employee is the one that goes to the judge and be like, hey man, our budget's getting a little tight. Now, should they listen to him or not? I don't know. But I think that it would be illogical to think that person doesn't, that this judge doesn't at least pause for half a second because of an input from a person. Especially from a person who is directly involved in what's going on. Now, should they listen to him or not? I'm not going to should the part of the conversation, but are they human and likely to at least consider the thought process? I would think so. All right. Is that how they get chow for the dogs in the K9 unit? I don't know. I don't know exactly how the budget breaks out and where it exactly goes, but I mean, hell, if you want to get down to the brass tacks of it, and the reality, I suppose, is that the law was written, or the statute for the city of Knoxville is written, where the penalty is a fine.
Right, that's what I was saying, that most of the penalties are fines.
But I'm saying
I was like, they're not doling out jail time.
So the
most
person
of the penalties
who wrote
are fines.
So the mayor's office and the city council who wrote and passed said ordinance that has a punishment of a fine, right, is saying we want the money. That's what they're saying. We want the people to stop doing the thing that we don't want them to do, and the consequence for that is the money. And those people, they put that in there for a reason, and so they want their reason to be fulfilled. That is an incentive for those people to go to the judge and be like, hey, we wrote it this way for a reason. Put the fine out. Quit giving people community service. Now, to say that they will blanket say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, I will do whatever you say. No, I'm not saying that's what they say, but I'm saying it's a factor that would go into their mindset. I would hope it is. If they're so painfully simple that they can't hold two thoughts at the same time and think about it and consider it, that's a worse level of intelligence than I think a judge should have in the first place.
No, all right. I don't think in their ruling that they're like, well, shit, how much did we make last month? Like, I may have to be doling out some higher fines. I don't think that thought crosses their mind. I don't think they're that corruptible.
I don't think it's. I don't think looking at. I don't think they would think of it as being corrupted. I don't know if I'd think of it as being corrupted either. I mean,
I would, because that's not being even-handed. That's not giving out an adequate punishment. That's sitting there thinking like, well, I don't want to fire someone, so I may have to start upping my fines.
I mean, they don't get to choose the amount; they just get to choose whether they get.
They do get to choose. Most offenses have a right. Yeah, most offenses have a range.
Well, you hit the top end, hit the low.
So I mean, it's still the judge's discretion to give anywhere from $50 fine up to a $500 fine, for littering or whatever. He can sit there and keep giving out 50. But from what I hear you saying is that there's a good likelihood that most of them could be thinking about how much money is in the coffers, depending on where that money's coming or going to, that it's not beyond them to that that they wouldn't be able to make the decision without some of that monetary thought going through their mind and influencing their decision on how big of a fine they want to give out to a person.
Okay. Agree to disagree then, because I don't know how else. I can't imagine it isn't part of the game.
I don't see why it should be.
I didn't say it should be part of the game.
I mean,
I just think it is.
They should not be a judge if that thought, when they're deciding judgment, is going through their mind.
Okay. Okay. Then again, it's not a should. I agree with you. It shouldn't be. It should be that what it should be is that this is what happened. Did you or did you not do it? Here's the evidence. Blah 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 blah. It's clear that you did it. You know, the state gives me the authority to place a fine on you of X to X. I think it's X is appropriate. I think Y is appropriate for you. Moving on. Nowhere in that thing did I say anything about how well the parks need more money for a swing set. No, it shouldn't be part of the thought process. But should and are not the same thing.
True.
That's the thing. I don't know. Elaine Davis came out, talked to the kids, lied to the kids. Can't remember what now.
Interesting.
Didn't lie to the kids. Like, my fault, I guess. Actually, not my fault. I everything went through Eric, and I was like, I just wanted to do like 5 minutes on like what got her into politics, because like the unit the kids are working on is about like civil responsibilities. Like, what is your responsibility as a citizen of the United States? What is your responsibility as a citizen of Tennessee or Knox County or whatever it is? And so just give us like 5 minutes on, what the responsibility and why you felt the responsibility of being a person who was saying, and she got started and had like 30 seconds and kind of faded off. And I was like, okay, let me jump in here. I was like, some of you guys know I do this little podcast with me and my friends and stuff like that. We talk a lot about politics. And one of the things that I've learned in chasing down this rabbit hole is that when it gets down to the brass tacks of it, this person right here, Elaine Davis, most of you guys live in her district. She and likely Massey are, they're the two most important people to get things done for you. If you want a road fix, if you want this stuff, you want, what's going on in your schools, that's you. That goes through this person. This is the person who's going to vote on the things that make the biggest difference in how much money we get to spend on schools, how much money we get for infrastructure around here, and this, that, and the other, and all these different, whatevers. And Elaine Davis is like, no, your school board's very important. And I was like, okay. And she went on and kind of spieled on it. And I was like, I'm not gonna. We did the whole thing, and we finished her day. She was fine. Really, actually, a more interesting backstory. And speaking of schools, apparently her aha moment in politics was she was a parent advocate for nurses in schools. Her eldest, I guess, who's like 30 now, is a diabetic. And, as a middle school, high schooler, it's not that big a deal because they can handle their own process. But when you're talking about a kindergarten or first grader having to do, like, the blood sugar test with the prick on the finger, right, and then do an insulin shot, you have to have somebody do that for them. They can't do that themselves.
Right.
Well, that, because you have what is called a needle in the process, that becomes a medical procedure by definition. You cannot have a teacher or a principal,
right,
administering a medical procedure to a child.
Correct.
Well, the state of Tennessee has, I can't remember what the number is, but it's like 1,500 students get a nurse every 1,500 students. There are no elementary schools in Knox County that have 1,500 students in them. He has to do this, like he had to do this process every day. Multiple times a day during school. But his school only had a nurse 2 days a week.
Right.
So how do we make this work? And that's what got her into politics, trying to figure out how to make this work. And the grossest part about it, which is what, like, this is kind of definitionally why I have issues with unions generally. The grossest part about it is the nurses union, the nurses who are, if you are employed with Knox County Schools, you're automatically in some East Tennessee nurses union or whatever like that. Opposed her before she got into office, when she was just a parent advocate. She had gotten some legislation started, which was basically allowing volunteers to come in who had training to do these different procedures and be able to help these kids. And the nurses union opposed it. You want to guess why?
Because they weren't including it?
Because they don't have to hire these volunteers.
Yeah.
And if you don't have to hire the volunteers, they're not nurses that are part of the union, which means the union and the nurses don't get paid. And so by the time she got any headway on this, her kid was out of school already. But this is the fuckery. And that was the one thing that I got to explain to the kids on my side of it. It's like, that's one thing you got to keep in mind, guys, is it doesn't move fast. And that's a good thing. It shouldn't move fast. Because if it moves fast, the bad things move fast too.
Yeah.
So, it sucks that this particular thing happened as long, and it still hasn't been resolved when it gets down to the brass tacks of it. But if it moved fast, then the bad things move fast too. So, yeah, if you want something significant change, you got to get to work on it because it's going to take a long time.
It's true.
Which they were all like, whatever, dude.
Yeah,
I don't care. All right, so
I saw that earlier. Before that,
is that not it?
No.
Oh, sorry.
No, that was something else.
I got excited.
It's kind of weird, but I found it kind of interesting. I didn't realize it was a phobia.
Say the
but
word.
If you click on, I can't. I was trying to get you to click on it because it actually, I think further down or halfway through the article, I think there is like a little soundbite of saying it.
Paraskevidekatriaphobia is the fear of Friday the 13th.
It's the fear of Friday the 13th. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was an
and
actual...
apparently if one learns how to pronounce...
What are we doing here? Give me... I don't
want... the name of...
I don't want to listen to the whole damn podcast on it.
Oh, you're trying to go back to it?
Yeah, I just want to start it from the beginning.
Disorder, one will never suffer from this disorder
from
again.
NPR.org.
So Paraskevidekatriaphobia.
Oh,
and people who suffer from the fear of Friday the 13th. And apparently if one... Paraskevidekatriaphobia is the fear of Friday the 13th. And...
You want to try it now?
Mouthful. Hell no.
Paraskevidekatriaphobia. It's pretty close. I'll take that as a win.
There you go. Closer than I can do.
Oh, I want that. I don't want that job, but that's an interesting job. Like, who gets the name? Who gets to make this shit up?
They make it up. I think that. I mean, most of them have like
right.
some
They're
kind
like
of Latin,
Beirut. Right. It's just a bunch of whatever. Yeah. I mean, because I kind of I kind of love that kind of shit. Like, we're Jeopardy tonight had one where braid. Apparently, some like older English version of the word braid is broid, and that's where the term embroidery that we use today comes from. Like, I do like I love the entomology kind of shit. Like,
yeah,
it's interesting to me.
Yeah,
especially because it just sounds like
broid.
Broid to me sounds like some weird trying to put a word that doesn't quite do past tense right. Like brought.
I mean, it's interesting to see a language kind of coming to or changing over time. Or how we started, coming up with words or mixing words together. Shakespeare is quoted for, quote unquote, inventing many words because he was, mixed two common words that were there at the time to kind of, come up with this new concept. And
right, or it's a way to force the rhyme scheme or the syllable patterns and whatever. That is all right.
A lot of it's just using certain words to convey a point or understanding of something.
And this is like an old school philosopher thing. It's like, what is language?
Right.
It's just the transference of ideas.
So I was saying earlier, you just rolled your eyes at me, and I'm like,
what? What was I rolling my eyes at you for?
So towards the beginning, I was like, well, it's all about definition, or it's all.
Oh, the Republican Democrat thing. The words. Yeah, but they don't mean anything. They don't mean the same thing today.
That's also, but that sounds like that's most of the English language. And you're like, whatever.
No, I wasn't rolling. Yes. No, you're correct in the general phrase of it. But generally, when the English language shifts over a extensive period of time, not 36 minutes. My point is that the term Republican or the term Democrat doesn't mean anything ever. There is no definition of what it means philosophically and how that works in the world and kind of shit like that. And it just gets plopped on and dropped on and moved and adjusted to fit the phrase of the day.
Right. Exactly. You admit that it is ambiguous.
Right. But
then if I say it to one person, if I say one or the other to one person, their interpretation of it's going to be their own understanding of it.
See, I think that's where I think I disagree. I think when you get out into the generalities of what it is, if you go out and survey, if we did a poll and walked around and talked to people kind of thing, I think you would get pretty consistent from normal people what Republican means, what Democrat means. You would get different versions of consistency.
I think for the most part, you're going to have just like the generic tropes, like a Republican, they mean smaller government.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But that's what it means to them. And that's why but it doesn't mean
that's just
that
what they think it means.
But it doesn't mean that to the people who run wearing the label.
Sure.
And that's the problem that I have with it. Because I think if you go out on the street and talk to people, Democrats, depending on who you talk to, but they're going to say the same thing in two different ways. They're going to say, someone who is more left-leaning is going to be like social services, taking care of people, blah, 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 where a more right-leaning person is going to be like, they're going to tax my money and give it to poor motherfuckers. It's the same thing. It's just a different outlook on how you get there. Yeah. But it's the same idea. But that thought process, and the politicians in power play that game on purpose. They want those definitions to be the norm, but they don't want to apply them to themselves. Like they cultivated that definition that normal people use, and then they massage that when it comes to their actions in office, and that's where it's the fuckery part. But anyway, you got a news of where? Let's get this. Let's get this one more time, just for good measure.
Paraskevidekatriaphobia is the fear.
Thank you, NPR, for your wonderful pronunciation of Paraskevidekatriaphobia.
Paraskevidekatriaphobia is the.
So anyway, for real this time.
Got a man who found a bag of cash and claimed finders keepers, pays back town, felony charge dropped.
Pays back town? So it was the town's money?
Yeah, apparently it was a what did they say?
It's like Vegas rules.
It was
it's Vegas rules. If it's on the ground,
it was a town's tax collector's office. And the town employee had dropped the bag while walking to the bank to deposit the money.
Oh, I like my Vegas rules one better. Yeah. And that's true, right? You know that story?
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Like in Vegas, if money's on the floor, it's the casinos, by definition?
No.
That's not true, or you don't know that?
I can say it for a fact that that's not what happened when my chips got dropped on the floor.
Did you pick them up? Were you in a tournament or something?
No, I was actually outside of the room because I happened to go outside to...
Oh, yeah, I do know the story. That's right.
Smoke a cigarette while they were changing out the bullpen or whatever. Bull cage, whatever. Cage.
I'd always heard that was the thing, though, is that Vegas is like as soon as it hits the ground. And I guess it makes sense as a rule because, like, if I knock your chips on the ground and try to pick them up and claim them as mine, and it's not clear that they were yours in the first place, the easiest way to settle the argument is it's neither yours.
Possibly. But, I mean, this day and age, they've got 50 million cameras, yeah.
So, all right, so tax collector drops the money on his way to the bank.
Yeah. Guy picked it up, claimed finders keepers, had a criminal charge against him dropped after he gave the money back.
I mean...
felony larceny charge.
Because, see, that's kind of fucked up. I don't know. Let me think about that for a second. Like, was it clearly? Like,
police said the bag had the bank's name on the outside and there were deposit slips inside.
So it was clearly, right.
Indicating the money belonged to the town, authorities said.
And his stance was, I found it, I get to keep it. It doesn't matter if it's clearly somebody's. I don't know. How would that work if it was mine? Like, I got some Scouts popcorn cash here, and if I drop that on the way to the bank and somebody picks it up, you think the DA is going to charge a due with larceny, grand larceny?
Give me the scenario again, sorry.
We've been doing popcorn sales. I'm the popcorn colonel.
Right.
And so I got some cash that we've collected from our popcorn sales that I haven't taken to the bank yet. If I'm on my way to the bank tomorrow and I drop my little bag that I have my money in with a deposit slip, says it's for, whatever it is, and somebody finds it, like, how did they figure out he had it? Sorry.
Video. It was right outside the bank.
Okay. So, Yeah. So same set of scenarios. It's a private entity's money instead of this city's money.
Yeah.
Do you think the city attorney is going to be like, hey, give our money back or we're charging you with grand larceny? Or give this person their money back or we're charging you with grand larceny?
I would think you could still go down to the police department and file a complaint.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope so.
Right.
Like, like, hey, I dropped this and I walked in the bank with my backpack and I realized as soon as I got there that I was missing it. And I was like, I don't know where it is. And I was freaking out. And the bank checked the cameras and they saw the guy pick it up. I would hope so.
Right.
Okay.
I would think so.
I would like that. I would like that to be the truth. All right.
One more.
One more.
Flight to Florida returns to Panama over a suspected bomb that turns out to be an adult diaper.
Guy's wearing the adult diaper, so he's bulky.
Let's see. Plane returned to the Panama early Friday. Let's see here. Landed. We're taking off. Airport said suspicious object in one of the plane's bathroom was found to be an adult diaper.
Oh,
I guess they...
Okay, so he shoved it in the trash can. It's like, that's something weird. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I guess they thought something was
put
into the bathroom.
I agree. That is weird, whatever that was. All right, man, last call. You got anything else?
Nah, that's about it.
Talking about people shitting their pants just really doesn't do it for me.
Paraskevidekatriaphobia.
I nailed that shit. Oh, man. I'm way too proud of that little editing mastery that I just dropped on y'all. We're Almost Agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. We'll start messing with county races now because those official petition pickups go out this week, too. So you got early voting. You've got petition pickup for the 24 races. It's about to get crazy in this election cycle. So anyway, we're Almost Agreement. Hang out, and we'll talk to y'all soon.